Welcome back. As you heard, it is, yes, a holiday edition of the SHOPO Hour. The fellas are in studio. Let me give you primetime traffic first. More about you and the rest of the fellas. And we can start at the very beginning, if you don't mind. Brother Nick, originally from where?
Originally born on the mainland. However, my father was in the Army, so we moved here in 1976 with one transfer overseas for about 3 years. So I'm 48, and I've lived here for 44 years.
Wow, my goodness.
Yeah.
It's only 48. Oh, you're the youngin' in this room.
Yeah, I guess I'm the youngin'.
Goodness gracious. And can you share a bit about your parents and growing up and as part of a military family, a little bit of that experience from you? Sure.
So my father retired from the Army in 1989. Okay. Up until then, that was the only life that we knew as a family. So integrated into civilian life. He ended up getting a job with the state. Went to school here, the entire thing, intermediate, elementary, and then high school. Did a little bit of college. Didn't quite work out. So went on the job scene for a while, and then about almost 15 years ago, I became a police officer.
Wow. Got to ask, high school?
Wanalua.
All right. I don't know why you said all right. I have no idea. I never went. But it's not a great school indeed. And what was the catalyst for service with HPD?
Oh yeah, I told you on my first time here, I just needed a job, so I applied. No, that's not true. Something that I think a lot of people always want to try and take a stab at, but taking the plunge and actually doing it, is a different story. It takes a lot of commitment. It takes a lot of training your mind to kind of be focused to a certain way of doing things and a certain lifestyle, passing a lot of examinations, going through a lot of background checks, a lot of paperwork, and then finally, if you make it, getting into the academy, and then again having your whole life turned upside down and learning a new way of thinking and doing things and living, and carrying out that dream from there.
Yeah. What was the most dramatic either moment or experience within the academy?
Within the academy, oh gosh. Every day in the academy is an interesting day. There's a lot of, well, at least there used to be a lot of discipline, very, very rigorous, very, very physical. I remember the thing that most of us were trying to do was do our best, but not get injured to the point where we failed out of the academy, because it's common for injuries to happen given the nature of the physical training and then the control and arrest tactics training.
Right. And could you share an example of that rigor of what you would be required to do as part of the academy?
Sure. So at the time, we were spending, it was a 5-day work week. 4 of those days we were spending doing about 4 hours of control and arrest tactics training, which was essentially just going hands-on with people. That 5th day was what we called PT day. So that 3 or 4 hours was just spent doing PT. So it was kind of a nice little break at times, because the PT day was one of those like, okay, we don't have to beat each other up kind of days. All we have to do is push-ups and sit-ups and a bunch of running. So it sort of broke it up. But
geez,
yeah,
is that still today the experience in the academy?
I understand that certain aspects of it have changed, but it's still very physically oriented. Like, for example, recruits at the police academy in Honolulu are not allowed to walk anywhere. I don't know if anybody knew that, but when you're on campus, you're not allowed to walk. You have to run from building to building, from room to room, and it's a paramilitary organization. So not only do you have to constantly be disciplined and alert to what the rules of the academy are, but you have to be alert to whoever's around you. So military courtesy is a big deal over there.
Right.
Constantly addressing people by ma'am, sir, making sure that if you do see an instructor around campus or something like that, that you address them no matter how far away they are, that kind of thing.
Interesting. See, I would never have known that. Thank you for sharing that. And describe your very first day of service as an HPD officer.
Oh, my very first day, I was in training in District 6 Waikiki. I was assigned to a training officer who is a lieutenant in the D7 zone now. I think one of the first things we did was a traffic stop. The operator of the vehicle ended up having a warrant. I arrested him on the warrant. He ended up having drugs in his pocket, and it was like all of the training that led up to that just came and meshed.
Right.
At the time, it was I remember a really big experience, very exciting day for me.
I would imagine. See, and that's what I love about sharing the backstory, because very first day, an encounter, and as you just said, training, boom, kicked in. And that's why it's so important, and that's why, and I'll assume, why HPD officers are in pursuit by other police departments on the mainland, because the training is so very thorough.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. The training academy experience is 6 to 6.5 months long. As I've said before, there's another 3 months or so of field training where you're paired up with training instructors in the field. After that, you're in the fourth watch program for a few months, and then right around month 12 or 13 is when you start to go out to whatever district assignment that you'd like to put in for, if you can make it there. But yeah, all the training just gelled. The training academy here on Oahu is excellent. It's CALEA certified. It's nationally recognized. We have a very good program, and mainland competitors who come to Honolulu looking for officers are more than happy to come here and try and poach our people, because they know that the training experience and the experience in the field that we have is on par with just about anywhere on the mainland.
We're talking with Brother Nick, and one last thing, if you don't mind, in the 15 plus years, it's kind of like asking who's your favorite child, but is there a particular moment, incident, encounter, or a gratifying, uplifting community moment that stands out to you the most?
I've seen a lot of people, regular everyday people, do a lot of good things. One of the more amazing things I saw was a house fire where a neighbor ran into the house and ended up saving a person who was asleep, who probably would have perished either by flame or by smoke inhalation. This happened very early in the morning, maybe 6:30 or 7:30 in the morning. One of the family members was cooking, left the oil unattended, and ended up catching on fire. And here's this neighbor who happens to notice something's wrong, comes out of his house, sees the place smoking, in his bare feet, runs through the kitchen area to get to the upstairs to save this person. The stove in the kitchen had exploded, and the glass from the oven door, the oven. The oven had exploded, so the glass from the oven door had exploded out all over the floor. This guy, in his bare feet, ran through the glass and pulled this person out, stayed long enough for us to get enough information for our report, and then went straight to work like nothing had happened.
And just went to work right after.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Much appreciation. And that's Brother Nick today, 7:20 in the morning already. All right, Brother Steve, I'm looking right at you, man.
You are.
Now, the first time I encountered Brother Steve was on TV when he was on a revised edition of Love Connection. And you and Chuck Woolery had such a dynamic relationship.
That's
Two and two. I thought you were gonna say
we'll be right back in 2 and 2.
2 and 2.
I thought you were going to say the dating game.
Brother Steve, let's same with you, if you wouldn't mind. Let's go back to the beginning. Originally from where?
Sure. So, Rick, I'm originally from Chicago, born and raised there. And before I became involved in the police department, I was actually in the fitness industry. My undergraduate degree is in business, and I always enjoyed weightlifting, weight training, this kind of thing, being athletic. And I was working for a national health club chain called Bally Total Fitness.
Oh, yes.
It was pretty popular back then, late 90s, early 2000s, and I'd spent 10 years with them. And it was a good run. I had worked my way up to running basically a regional territory with the organization. The money was good. I had a lot of job satisfaction for that point in my life. But when you're Irish in Chicago, there's a couple routes that you take, right? You either join the fire service, the police department,
or open a bar,
or Rick, you become an attorney, or you sign up with one of the trades union, whether it's the plumbers, the electricians, or the iron workers, right?
Gotcha.
So I had been doing the fitness industry for a while, and it was good, but I knew in my heart, Rick, that this was just not something that I wanted to do long term. Admittedly, I got into it because the compensation was good. It was fun. It was a time in my life where it worked out, early 20s, whatever. But I knew that I wanted to get into the police department. My dad's brother, I have relatives that live in New York. I should say my dad was originally from New York. He came out to Chicago. He met my mom. My dad was actually a college professor. My mom was his student. They got together and had 3 boys. And we can go down that road later. I saw the look on your face. I saw it.
No, because I met Bernadette when she was an intern at the station. I'm with you.
Right. So, I had known that I wanted to get into the police department. So what I started to do when I was working in the fitness industry, and this was in the early 2000s, when these types of jobs were extremely competitive, I started going to websites that were available that notified you of different law enforcement job openings. Okay, and you could fill out an interest card. So I remember being in one of the gyms that I was running, and I used the computer kiosk there to actually fill out at random an interest card for Honolulu PD because it popped up.
Wow.
And my only experience with this community is I came here in 1998 for the Pro Bowl because I had won a contest with Bally Total Fitness that I was working for.
Right.
So that was my only experience.
Okay.
Admittedly, disclaimer here, I originally thought I was going to get on Chicago PD. That was the plan. I was on an eligibility list for Chicago PD, but where a lot of the law enforcement agencies back then did is you jump through all these hoops, you got on an eligibility list, and then the list was good for, let's say, a period of 2 years. And they would take as many people as they needed, and then after 2 years, the list would expire. I had guys on the job back in Chicago that said, hey, Steve, look, if you really want to get into this profession, you should put in multiple applications, okay? Because there's a lot of things that could get you disqualified throughout the process that maybe are not totally under your control. So I had said to myself, I said, listen, I'm born and raised in Chicago. I said, maybe I need to just get out a little bit. So I started to apply to agencies in warmer climates. Okay.
I feel you, man.
Thinking though that ultimately Chicago PD would call me. We fast forward this a little bit. Honolulu PD gets back to me and says, hey, listen, this is how we roll over here. If we take you and you start the Keikula Academy, you start the police school, we're going to get you a class date. We can get you hired in 8 months. You pass you go through step 1, 2, 3, and 4, and as long as you don't get kicked out, we're not going to make you wait on an eligibility list. So before I knew it, Rick, from the time I filled out that interest card, kind of, I don't want to say on a whim, but I mean, I did it with intention, but not thinking it was going to really amount to anything. Honolulu PD sent me a letter early 2006 asking me if I wanted to come to the police academy that would kick off January 3rd of 2007.
Gotcha.
So I resigned. I moved here. I didn't know the challenge for me, Rick, which was, and I'll say this openly, not only did I need to learn how to be the police, but I needed to assimilate and learn about the community that I would eventually be serving. And I have to tell you, that was a little bit not a challenge. It was an opportunity, but just you take it for granted. In Chicago, everybody can pronounce the street names if you were never raised there. You go to Chicago, Madison, Cicero, you got the names of the streets. I realized pretty quickly that I was a little bit behind the learning curve because I realized real quick when you're in Pearl City and some of these other locations, I didn't even know how to say the streets.
Right.
And that's the truth.
There are some people that were born and raised here that don't know how to say the streets.
And I was a little admittedly, I knew that I wanted to prove myself as somebody that could come here and fit in and work hard. So I was a little bit self-conscious about that. I can get most of the streets, I guess, pretty good, but I would still probably have a challenge with some. Yeah. And I started the academy back in 2007, Rick, and I've been with the department ever since.
In the time we have,
sure,
you're similar to Brother Nick, your academy experience, and what happened on the first day on the job.
Sure. So when I was recruited to come to Honolulu PD, I was recruited under a work schedule that would be 312, right?
Wow.
I was told, hey, the work schedule is 312. You're going to come to the academy. It's not a live-in academy. You'll come to the campus and then you'll be able to go home. And they didn't divulge too much about what it was going to be. They said, you're going to have weekly tests and you're going to have to pass these proficiencies, but they didn't go down too deep. And admittedly, I was just happy to get the opportunity. So I didn't ask a lot of questions. Okay.
Right.
When you get to the, I didn't ask a lot of questions.
And there's more.
And there's some more.
Yes.
I don't want to take away the experience from new recruits that come to the Kekula. I want them to appreciate just like I did. So I won't get into too much details of what the first couple of days are like. But I can share with you one thing that I wasn't made aware of, and that is this. We were given a weekly academic test every Friday, okay, on material that was covered. Mm-hmm. If you did not pass that test, you were given one makeup test. If you didn't pass that, pack your stuff and go. Now, when I was back in Chicago and doing my clarification interview in Las Vegas, not one time did they mention, and by the way, Steve, if you don't pass these Friday tests, you can take yourself right back to where you came from.
That's right. Yeah.
So that was a little bit of a surprise. Yeah.
Yeah, but navigated well.
Navigated, sure.
Grad and this.
Yep.
So in a few moments, tell us about your first day on the job, if anything occurred or did not.
Sure.
But knowing that you were an HPD officer.
Sure. So rather than talk about an individual experience, I think every cop on the job remembers their field training officers without question. Okay. And in Honolulu PD, you're given 3 different training officers. And if you're asking me about the first one, I won't mention his name, but I was assigned to D6 Night Watch.
Ooh.
Okay.
You're right in it.
I came through at a time where I think the FTOs could take 2 different approaches. One was more of a maybe like a teacher type of scenario where things are just kind of explained in a normal tone of voice and this kind of thing. Or the field training officers could take a slightly different approach, a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more loud. And I just remember the first night I was with my FTO. And don't laugh now. I was living out in Eva Beach, okay?
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that I could get the police cruiser from the main station to Waikiki. And even though Waikiki now is easy to navigate, my biggest issue is, because I know I'm being evaluated, is, okay, let me just make sure I can get the police car from the main station to the Waikiki district without getting lost. It sounds terrible. Remember, back in the day, you didn't have Garmin GPS. You didn't have any of that stuff to help you navigate. You didn't have a computer. I'm like, okay, how embarrassing would it have been to pull out a map book? Pull out a map book as soon as you pull out of the police station by the pumps to go to Waikiki. Right. So the biggest thing that I remember, Rick, is that...
this is the old police station over on Young.
No, it's still on Alpha. It's still on
the main one.
It's the main one. Oof. I remember just wanting to make sure that I got to District 6 without taking any wrong turns.
Right.
Because my FTO would certainly let me know that. I think he must have thought I was hard of hearing, because on every case we went to and every time we interacted, he always felt like he needed to yell.
Yeah.
And he knows who he is. I'm not going to call him out now. And anybody listening, they know who my FTO was at that time.
But the beautiful part is he was nominated for an Academy Award for Full Metal Jacket. And he was
at the end of the
DI.
Something like that. At the end of the day, here's the thing. I passed phase 1, and I had to learn something from him. So, hey, there we go. And then it was on to phase 2 and 3. Yeah.
How many years on the job now?
So I'm on my 17th year of service. So I have 16 in the books. I'm on year 17.
Wow. Brother Steve, thank you.
You're welcome, Rick. Yeah.
And when we come back from our very short break, we'll use the rest of this hour and the next for Brother Mark Critchlow. And there we have it. It is the SHOPO Hour. Thank you very much for choosing us. A special time today, getting to know our brothers in studio. And we'll return in a moment. Stand by, 7:31. Sorry about letting the music run all the way through. We're having a very thoughtful, revolutionary discussion with Steve and the boys in studio. It is the SHOPO Hour, and you're dialed in. News Radio 830 KHVH. This part of the program on this Kuhio Day holiday, we're getting to know, once again, a little bit better our friends in studio who join us each Monday on the SHOPO Hour. And Brother Nick, Brother Steve have shared at the moment we've all been waiting for. Brother Mark Critchio, who we learn more about you as well, and we'll start at the very beginning.
Okay.
Originally from where?
Long Island, New York.
Long Island.
Born and raised over there.
Yep.
Worked. We had a family business over there, little superette meat market. Right. I'm a meat cutter by trade, butcher. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I came here because I hate the cold weather. My parents retired here. Right.
Yes.
Came out, and then I'm going to tell you a story how I actually got here. So when I was running the business, I would go. We lived like an hour from the city, right? Mm-hmm. So we had our for all our merchandise, like our beef, pork, lamb, and all that. I would go to the wholesale meat markets in either Manhattan or Brooklyn or the Bronx, right? Mm-hmm. And then one February. Cold February, I get up 3 a.m, get my trucks in, doing my stuff, and broke down. I had to walk 5 miles in like single degree weather, and that was it. I said, I am the F out of this place.
That's a deal breaker.
Oh my God. So, and all my friends are like, hey, you'll be back. You're going to miss the seasons. I go, no, I could do sunny and 80 all year round. So, right? Yeah. So I moved here in 1989, right?
Yeah.
And then I was working for Safeway as a relief manager, right? Nighttime, I was bartending Gussie Lamore's. Remember that place?
Oh, my gosh. Now I know who to blame.
Hey, that was one of my best jobs. I had so much fun over there.
Were you behind the whole idea of the mud wrestling with
the
strippers?
I loved it. Oh, I tell you, that guy, the owners of that, they were from Vegas originally, right? I mean, they treated me really good. They were really cool guys.
Oh, my gosh.
And then, they had a live band, a lot of military.
But I'll
right
say
over
one thing.
Yeah.
One of the best shows I ever saw, Tower of Power at Gussie's. Yeah. They rocked it. It was just the perfect environment.
I tell you, that place was like the movies, man. I mean, every weekend I had chairs flying over my head. It was nuts in that place. Oh, my God.
I didn't know you worked at
Gussie's. I worked there nighttime, and I worked for Safeway during the day.
Wow.
Right?
Well, that explains a lot.
Yeah. And then, so a lot of cops used to come in, right? And you just
They had to,
right? So they would come hang out, because they were there almost every night breaking off fights and stuff. So one of the guys would say, hey, why don't you apply? We have a big recruiting effort. I go, they're not going to take me, right? So they come in the next week, did you apply? I said, oh, no, I didn't apply. So they actually brought me an application, right?
Wow.
Filled it out.
Nice.
And I did it on a whim, right? I did it on a whim. So I was on Kauai. I opened a Safeway store over there. There's a brand new in Kapa'a,
yeah,
right?
Sure.
So, and then that's when I got we didn't have cell phones back then, but that's when I got the notice that, hey, you're hired, right? So it's like, I still didn't know what to do. I was making good money.
Yeah.
Because, like we were discussing off air, we actually took a pay cut to come in HPD, man, from other professions, right?
I gotcha.
So, but anyway, I said, long term, I think I'll be better off between benefits and all that stuff, right? So I came in 1990. I finally got hired and came on. So 1990, I came in. Yeah.
So the whim and then leading to the choice. What was the factor in deciding to continue with HPD?
So my mentality was I had no idea what to expect. Right. And I said, if I don't like it, I'll leave, And then, each day got better. I was like, hey, I could do this. I like this, helping out people, this and that. Right. I mean,
yeah.
So, that's how it went. It's just because a lot of guys in the department were like, oh, I always wanted to be a police officer, right? You talk about first day, right?
Right.
Academy, right?
Yep.
I didn't know. So first day, right, you got to get up in front of everybody, give your background, and tell everyone why you want to be a police officer, right? And I was sweating because I'm like, I didn't want to be a police officer. What am I going to tell these people?
And what did you tell them?
So I did the old BS like everybody else. Like, oh, I want to help people, blah, 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 right? But which actually became true, But, Yeah, that was funny. My first day. It's like, man, because hey, we had guys in my class, electricians, IT guys, they work for banks, and it's like a lot of people took pay cuts, but there was their lifelong dream, to be a police officer, right? So,
right. And that
was interesting.
And that first day on the beat, on the road, in uniform, how was that first day for you?
Yeah, it was scary for me, because now you're hitting reality, right?
Yeah.
You're done with all the plastic guns and the plastic knives, right? It's all reality, right? So the first day was super mellow. So my FTO, well, I'm going to tell you first thing, old station, right?
Okay.
And then I had an old-time FTO, but awesome guy. I learned a lot from him. But, okay, let's go back. Prior to, they would tell you before you hit the road, hey, get your map book, right? Go learn where you're supposed to work, right? Go drive around. So I'm driving around a week before and trying to kind of like Steve, I don't want to get lost, right? And then same thing with the roads. I'm like, I don't know how to pronounce this stuff, But so I find my FTO, I go to introduce myself, shake his hand. He looks at me, he goes, go fall in. And I'm like, oh, this is how it's going to go. Oh, man. Yeah. So, falling, we had inspection, right? And then our class was the first class with the 9mm, the transition. Right. So now
from a 38.
Yes.
Okay.
So prior to us leaving the academy, all the instructors are saying, you guys are going to get out there, you're going to get in a lineup, and all these old timers are going to want to see your gun. You do not do that. Right. So now, of course, I go to the station. I get this old timer in my FTO. Let me see that thing. I'm not going to say no to him.
And then he writes you up for showing him the gun. No.
It was good. I learned a lot from the old timers. I really did. It was very, very strict. They were hard on you, but you learned, man. Yeah. So that's why I see a lot of these young guys. They're complaining, blah 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 blah. No, just take it, learn. Learn from these guys.
So over the years, you pursued and were successful at being promoted through within the department.
Yes.
Retiring very recently as major. What's the differentiation between lieutenant and below and lieutenant and above when serving?
Well, of course, captain and above, right? It's management, right? So now it's a lot more administrative. And I could see how you could be separated from the rank and file. I made sure I would not do that. Right?
And how did you do that?
I made sure I got out of my office every single day. Make sure every single day I was in that lineup room. I would walk the halls.
Yeah.
You got to talk to these people, because that's one of the biggest things I heard and saw as an officer, that we never see the rank and file. I mean, we never see captains and above, or we never see the chiefs, right? We never see the deputies. We never see the assistant chiefs, right? And it's true. But working in the chief's office, I could see why also. But you got to make it. You got to make the effort.
Yeah.
But they're busy up there. They really are. They got a lot of crap going on up there. But and there's a lot of paperwork they have to do. But they got to make the effort to get down and see the rank and file. I made sure I would make sure to see them every single day.
Final thought?
So,
would you do it again?
Oh, absolutely. Best job in the world. Yeah, it's one of the best moves I ever made in my life.
There you go.
Yeah, awesome.
Love all of this and more. Gentlemen, I want to thank each and every one of you for sharing today. It's fantastic. Thank you indeed. We have just a few minutes. I'm going to take this final break. We're going to delve into some topicality, but it's a chance for you to really get to know the brothers of not only SHOPO, but also the department with Brother Mark as well. And I appreciate all three gentlemen, Bobby as well, for the service and being a part of this program. It is 7:47. We're back with our friends in studio. By the way, stay with me, because coming up next will be State Representative Elijah Pierrick to talk. I just want to talk to Elijah about this ridiculous, anyway, it's so stupid. Anyway, Elijah coming up at 8:10. Gentlemen, we were off air kind of following a story developing out of Nashville, where we have yet again another shooting in a school, this time allegedly perpetrated by a young female student. There are 5 lives lost in this incident. I just want to get your take, and we have some time, but it's going to be another opportunity for those who want to politicize this thing, all about gun control and guns and guns and guns. But I want, just from a law enforcement standpoint, your thoughts about this story in Nashville. Anybody?
Well, another tragedy. An interesting situation. It definitely shows that you never really know who a suspect can be. Obviously, whatever motivations are, they cross gender barriers and they cross ethnic barriers as well. But definitely unfortunate, and definitely another reason out there for all of us in law enforcement to always remain vigilant and professional and train and make sure that you know that every day that you go out to work, anything can happen.
So the shooter, allegedly a young female, officers had to take her down. A lot of attention will be on the fact that it was a young female, but I think the attention should be put on the officers. I can't imagine the impact it is for an officer having to take a young female student down. Necessary, yes. Maybe you can help me understand that, Steve.
You know, Rick, in this line of work, cops that work the street, they see many things. And to have a successful career, you have to be able to find ways to decompress. We see nobody calls the police when they're having a good day. So you know what I mean? Nobody's happy to see the police usually. In this specific case, we've talked about before on the show, in an active shooter situation, the first responding officers need to go directly towards the threat. They can't wait. I would say that probably the law enforcement officers that responded to that were courageous in what they did. And if they didn't act swiftly and accurately, maybe more lives could have been lost. I'll also segue to this. When you tell me something like that, Rick, I didn't hear about that. I'm hearing about that first time from you. Our young people in this country are crying out for help. It's not the firearm, okay? It's not firearm. It's not gun control. We as a society need to understand that we are failing our young people. We need to come to terms with some type of mental health and get a grip in society. If we think back to when I was, I'm not that old, but in the rural parts of Cook County and out in Homer Township and Homer, you could bring, in Southern Illinois, you had high school kids bringing shotguns to school and keeping them in their vehicles. And we never saw any type of things like this. It wasn't until the last 20 years, give or take 25 years, that this is coming up. So law enforcement that respond to that scene, they're going to need to decompress. It's going to be hard for them, but that's what they're trained to do. And hopefully they have ways to cope with what they needed to deal with. Yeah. And fortunately, they acted courageously enough. I hate to call this young girl a threat, but she was. And it also brings up something interesting closer to home with the safe spaces. Okay? You know, there are certain school districts that allow teachers to be armed. And you wonder if in this situation, you wonder if that's not something that could be considered if teachers become proficient with firearms for just this kind of thing.
Amen. Brother Mark.
Yeah. It's unfortunate, but, you know, us in law enforcement, we can't be looking at, it's a young girl. It's a threat, right? We got to stop the threat first, right? And this is what we go through. I mean, we'll deal with the fallout later, but it's a tough decision and it's a tough job, but it's just like Steve said, we got to go towards a threat. We got to stop the threat. We don't care what it is. It could be a 5-year-old for all we care, right? But one thing is, like, you know, these politicians, just leave it alone. Let law enforcement do their investigation, find out the whole background. Then you could scream about guns and this and that, but it's not the gun, it's the person, you know? And like Steve touched on with these safe places. Is a safe place going to stop somebody from coming in with a gun? Give me a break. Yeah. You know?
We have about 3 minutes or so. Maybe unfair to ask this, but a story has emerged out of the Big Island. Hilo prosecutor commenting on judges on the bench in regard to arrests and releases. Gentlemen, who would like to share an opinion?
Sure, I'd like to say this. Again, like we've said for the last few weeks, bending the rules as far as bail, letting people show up late if they don't make it on time, deciding that you are just going to simply release offenders pending a court date because jails are too full and prison facilities are too full. That's not a solution. It's not going to work. It's just not.
Steve?
I commend the prosecutor over there in East Hawaii for speaking out. Again, judges are releasing individuals with multiple felonies because the judges are citing that Hilo prison is overcrowded and there's issues inside. Fix the prison. Fix the prison. Because guess what? If you don't fix the prison, when you let those offenders out that are supposed to be in a prison, the community then becomes the prison. You understand? The community then becomes the prison because now you put the offenders back out on the street. And for the judges to do that, man, we've talked so many times about funding.
Yeah. Brother Mark?
Yeah. Real fast. Judges, they've been doing this for years. And I've seen it since day one when I came in the department. They've just been letting people go, letting them go. Look at COVID. Let them out. 1/3 reoffended. All those felons that they let out of that prison, right? They've been doing this for years. How about the legislature do their job? Build some prisons, right? To me, personally, it's not the judges enough to figure out where these people should go. No. You sentence these people, they go to jail. You let the system figure out where to put them, not the judges.
It has been, since I started this program, the debate and discussion has been going on about prisons. And one of the outsets of this show 30 years ago or so was the conversation about privatization of prisons here in Hawaii. And then State Representative Quentin Kavananakoa gave a dynamic presentation in his committee in regard, and even I was at that hearing, and it made absolute total logical sense. It was rejected over and over again, and what did we do? We send people to privatized prisons on the mainland, and it is the responsibility of our leadership to lead, not get agendized, not get self-centered, not get opportunistic, not self-serving. You do the best for the community. The incredible release during COVID was a disgrace. What's taking place on the Big Island, equally so. And you're right. The prison turns around. We lock ourselves up. We bolt our doors. We don't go out when we feel unsafe. We're the ones that are being incarcerated when the people in the big square building don't do their job.
You're right. And incidentally, real fast, EGA signed into law no privatization of prisons in Hawaii. So we can't even build them here.
Where is he now? And there we have it. Gentlemen, it's only about 614 days till the start of the NFL season, so I'm in real
We got
good
baseball
mood.
on Thursday.
Hey, it's coming up, and we got Final Four with 4 schools that nobody knows anything about, which is perfect. Brother Nick, thank you so much for today.
Thanks for having us.
Brother Steve, as always.
Right on, brother.
And Brother Mark Critchlow.
Right. Have a great week.
Thank you so very much. Representative Elijah Pirrick coming up next.